You ever have one of those mornings where everything seems normal, and then, in the blink of an eye, it turns into something you'll never forget? That was me on the Tennessee River that day. The sun was just creeping over the trees, glinting off the water, making it sparkle like liquid glass. But the river itself? It was angry, rushing past rocks and fallen branches, churning into whitewater rapids that looked like they were alive, like they wanted to pull you in. And there he was, or rather, she was. Or maybe it's better to say they, because a dog like this feels like more than one creature at a time. A Chesapeake Bay Retriever named Marley, and if you've ever seen a dog move with purpose, this was it. Muscles coiled, eyes sharp, tail held high, every step calculated even on slippery riverbank rocks. I was just hanging back with my camera, thinking I'd get some shots of kayakers navigating the morning rapids, when I heard the first scream. Not the typical woohoo of someone paddling, but a panicked, desperate yell that cut through the morning air. My heart skipped a beat, because on the Tennessee, screams like that almost always mean someone's in real trouble. And sure enough, a quick glance downriver confirmed it. A young kayaker, maybe mid-20s, had gotten pinned against a jagged outcrop of rocks. His kayak was sideways in the current, water slamming against it, pulling him in different directions, and he was frozen, arms flailing, trying to hold onto the vessel while the rapids thrashed around him. I froze for a second, my brain trying to figure out what to do, and then Marley appeared like a living bolt of determination. She was with her owner, Dave, a volunteer with a local water rescue group. But the moment she spotted the kayaker, she was off, bounding along the riverbank like gravity and fear didn't exist. Her paws barely slipped on the wet rocks, eyes locked on the person struggling in the rapids. And that's when the hair on the back of my neck stood up, because Marley wasn't just curious. She understood what was happening. She knew a life was at risk. Dave yelled after her, trying to call her back, but Marley didn't hesitate. There was a quick flash of panic from him, probably thinking about the danger of sending a dog into raging water. But Marley had already made her choice. She ran down to the edge of the river, body low, scanning the water, testing the currents, figuring out the safest point to enter. I swear, I could almost see the gears turning in her mind. Evaluate threat, approach carefully, secure the victim, return to safety. And the river was merciless. Water slammed against her legs the moment she stepped in, pulling, tugging, swirling, but she pressed forward. Meanwhile, the kayaker was panicking more and more, struggling to get control of the craft, calling out for help, and I could see him starting to go under. His voice was high-pitched, panicked, echoing off the cliffs. Every instinct in my body told me to grab something, anything, to try to help, but the current was too fast. And then I realized, Marley was already on it. She swam straight toward him, water up to her shoulders, eyes locked, every stroke powerful and precise, like she'd been trained for moments like this her entire life. I ran closer, shouting directions, but it was clear Dave had to act from the bank. He tied a rescue line to Marley's harness, and she grabbed hold, swimming like a torpedo through rocks and rapids. The kayaker flailed, confused and scared, and Marley barked, soft, reassuring, not loud enough to panic him more, but insistent enough to get his attention. And slowly, painfully, the kayaker managed to reach for the rope Marley had brought, clinging onto it as she guided him toward a calmer stretch of water near the shore. Watching her work was surreal. Every time the current tried to sweep the kayak downstream, Marley adjusted, nudged, paddled, barking directions in her own way. It wasn't chaos. It was precision chaos. She didn't hesitate. She didn't second-guess. And the kayaker, well, he started to calm down, his panic giving way to trust. Trust in this dog that had just entered the river, risking everything to get him out. And I can't lie, part of me wanted to laugh in relief. Because here's this massive river, raging like it's got a vendetta, and this Chesapeake Bay Retriever, basically a giant water-loving Labrador with 10 times the courage, is taking charge like a professional rescue team all by herself. There was water splashing in my face from waves bouncing off rocks, heart hammering, and still, I couldn't take my eyes off her. Every stroke, every bark, every glance at Dave on the shore, it was like she was saying, I got this. Don't worry, human. I've got this. Eventually, they made it to a calmer eddy. The kayaker clung to Marley, gasping for air, trembling, completely soaked, but safe. And Marley? She shook once, spraying water everywhere, tail wagging like nothing had happened, tongue lolling, satisfied but alert. Dave waded in, patting her head, laughing with relief, muttering, "You're insane, but I love you." And I think the kayaker laughed too, though he was still trembling, half disbelief, half pure, exhausted relief. It was one of those mornings where everything feels heightened, the sun glinting off the river, water rushing like it's alive, birds calling, and in the middle of it all, a dog showing courage and intelligence in a way that makes you rethink everything you thought about heroism. Not the kind with medals or trophies, but raw, instinctual, and life-saving. A dog, a river, a human in danger, and one heartbeat connecting all of them. And Marley wasn't done. That calm stretch was just temporary. Because the river doesn't forgive mistakes, and one wrong move, one slippery rock, and things could go south again. Dave tied a longer rope to Marley, guiding both her and the kayaker toward the riverbank. She nudged him, encouraged him, barked softly, and the kayaker finally managed to pull himself out of the kayak, onto the muddy shore, exhausted, wet, and shaking, but alive. And in that moment, I swear, you could see the pride in Marley's eyes. Like she knew she'd done exactly what she was meant to do. It was cinematic in the truest sense, heart-pounding, awe-inspiring, and deeply emotional. And for me, watching it, it wasn't just about the thrill of rescue. It was a lesson in courage, loyalty, and the incredible bond that can exist between a human and a dog. Marley was the hero, yes, but Dave's trust, the kayaker's eventual cooperation, the subtle coordination between them, it all made it feel like one synchronized act of bravery. So that's where we ended the first part of that morning. Kayaker safe, Marley alert and proud, river still rushing like a living thing, and me, standing there soaked and amazed, realizing I had just witnessed something extraordinary. The story was far from over, though, because as the water settled, and we thought the danger had passed, Marley's eyes darted downstream again. Her instincts were screaming at her, telling her the river wasn't done yet, and I knew in that instant that the next chapter of this rescue was about to begin. As the calm patch gave way to the roaring current again, my stomach sank. I thought the worst was over, but the Tennessee River had other plans. The kayaker, still clinging to Marley's rope, hadn't fully regained control, and the kayak started to spin sideways, scraping against submerged rocks. The river seemed alive, twisting and pulling, threatening to toss everything downstream. And Marley? She didn't hesitate. With a single powerful stroke, she paddled back into the main current, water splashing over her shoulders, eyes locked on the kayak like a seasoned captain navigating a storm. Dave on the shore was yelling instructions, waving his arms like crazy, but the noise of the rapids made it nearly impossible for anyone to hear anything. I could see the kayaker trying to stabilize himself, muscles trembling, hands gripping the paddle, jaw tight, but the current wasn't giving him a break. And Marley, she swam closer, brushing against the kayak with her snout, nudging the paddle to a more stable angle, guiding the craft with this uncanny precision. Every time a wave slammed into the kayak, she reacted instantly, countering the pull, almost as if she could feel the water moving beneath her paws. It was nerve-wracking. The current was ruthless. Small whirlpools formed around rocks, sucking in debris, snapping at anything in their path. I watched in disbelief as Marley darted through this chaos, weaving between rocks, avoiding fallen branches, keeping her eyes on the kayaker, never once looking back at Dave or anyone on the bank. She was in her element, terrifyingly competent, and my heart wouldn't stop hammering. At one point, the kayak spun too close to a jagged boulder. The kayaker froze, panic flaring in his eyes. I could hear him shouting, half curses, half pleas. And then Marley did something extraordinary. She pressed her chest against the kayak, pushing it just enough to keep it from tipping, paddling with all her strength against the current. She barked, not loud, not crazy, but firm, commanding, almost human in urgency. And the kayaker, as if understanding the rhythm of her movements, started paddling in sync, following her lead. I swear, the coordination between dog and human was like something out of a movie. Every movement, every reaction, perfectly timed. The river tried to toss them again, a swirling mass of whitewater threatening to capsize everything. But Marley kept them balanced, guiding them toward a less violent stretch. And through all this, you could see Dave on the shore, white-knuckled, shouting advice, tying ropes to trees, ready to pull them in the second they got closer. The suspense was almost unbearable. I could hear my own breathing, rapid, uneven. Every time Marley's paws slapped the water, I flinched. Every time a wave slammed the kayak sideways, I felt like my stomach had been dropped into my throat. But Marley, she didn't flinch once. She paddled with determination, barking occasionally, nudging the kayak, circling to keep it steady. Her eyes never left the kayaker, and her body language was pure confidence. She was telling him silently, "Hold on. I've got you. Trust me." Halfway through the rapids, the kayak got wedged between two rocks. The water churned violently around them, foaming and boiling, trying to tear the kayak apart. The kayaker shouted, panicked, struggling to get free. I could see him slipping, hands barely holding onto the paddle. And then, Marley executed this incredible maneuver. She dove under the kayak, forcing it upright with her strength, then swam alongside, nudging it forward, brushing the kayaker's back with her snout as if to reassure him. My jaw literally dropped. I've seen dogs do amazing things before, but this was on another level. Logic, courage, and sheer physical ability all combined in one furry package. Dave on the shore was shouting instructions, trying to keep calm, but his voice was almost drowned out by the river. I noticed a small branch floating downstream toward them, a potential hazard. Marley intercepted it without hesitation, barking sharply, pushing it aside with her snout before it could collide with the kayak. I thought, wow, this dog is thinking ahead, anticipating danger, reading the river. Every instinct she had was honed for moments like this. Finally, they reached a calmer pool near the shore, but the current was still strong. The kayaker was exhausted, trembling, barely able to paddle, and Marley barked, nudged, paddled harder, refusing to let him lose control. She circled him once, then twice, checking the water, guiding him toward a shallow bank. And there was this heart-stopping moment when a small wave slammed into the kayak from behind, tipping it dangerously. The kayaker let out a scream, and I braced myself, thinking we were going to lose him. But Marley leaned into the kayak, pressed her chest against it, paddled backward against the wave, and in a split second, stabilized it. It was like watching a miracle performed in real time. When they finally reached the shore, Marley scrambled up onto the muddy bank, tail wagging, chest heaving, eyes bright. The kayaker collapsed onto his knees, gasping for air, soaked, shaking, but alive. And Marley? She trotted over, nudged him gently, licked his hand, then looked up at Dave, as if reporting, "Mission complete." Dave laughed, exhausted, scratched her ears, and muttered, "You're unbelievable, girl. Unbelievable." And the kayaker, still catching his breath, laughed through shivering, half in disbelief, half in relief, saying, I don't know how you did that. That dog, she saved me." But it wasn't over yet. The river wasn't done. A sudden swell of whitewater surged downstream, carrying debris, branches, logs, even a floating cooler, toward them. Marley's ears perked instantly. She barked, darted forward, positioning herself between the kayaker and the floating obstacles. With precise nudges, she guided him away from danger, circling to intercept debris, barking instructions in the only way she could. Dave grabbed the rescue rope, helping guide them to safety, but Marley was still the one making the critical moves, positioning, pushing, paddling, and keeping the kayaker upright. I could feel the adrenaline coursing through me. Everyone else on the shore was holding their breath. People were pointing, murmuring, a couple started filming. But I didn't take my eyes off Marley for a second. She was all action, all instinct, all bravery, and completely unfazed by exhaustion. The water slapped against her sides, rocks scraped against her paws, currents tugged at her body, and still, she never faltered. Eventually, they reached a sandbank shallow enough for the kayaker to climb out. Marley nudged him again, tail wagging, letting him grab onto her fur for balance if he needed. And then, finally, he stumbled onto solid ground, knees buckling, soaked to the bone, gasping, but safe. Marley shook once, spraying mud and water everywhere, looked at Dave, and wagged her tail like nothing had happened. But everyone watching, everyone, was stunned. We had just witnessed an act of heroism that didn't come with medals or headlines. just a dog doing exactly what needed to be done. The kayaker hugged Marley, patting her fur, laughing through tears, whispering, "I owe you my life." And Dave knelt down, hugging Marley himself, saying, "You're my hero too, girl." And for a moment, the chaos of the river, the fear, the adrenaline, it all dissolved into this quiet, profound respect. Marley had not just saved a human. She had dominated a natural force, outsmarted the river, and acted with pure instinct and loyalty. Watching her, I thought about how we humans often underestimate the intelligence, courage, and intuition of dogs, especially working breeds like Chesapeake Bay Retrievers. They're strong, fearless, and trained to think independently in dangerous situations. But seeing Marley in action wasn't just about training. It was about heart, instinct, and this unshakable drive to protect life at all costs. And the way she and the kayaker worked together, instinctively, trusting each other, was cinematic in the truest sense. By the time the rescue team arrived with a boat to secure the kayak, Marley had already made it clear that her job was done. She trotted back to Dave, chest heaving, paws muddy, fur matted with water and grit, eyes bright with satisfaction. And the kayaker, still shaking, laughed, hugged her again, and whispered, "I owe you everything." And everyone watching, myself included, realized something essential. Heroism doesn't always come with a uniform. Sometimes it comes with fur, paws, and eyes that refuse to turn away when someone is in danger. And in that moment, standing on the riverbank, soaked and heart racing, I knew this story wasn't just about a rescue. It was about instinct, loyalty, courage, and the unspoken bond between humans and dogs. It was about stepping up when it matters most, about trusting your partner, even if your partner has 4 legs and a wet nose. By the time the river finally calmed, the adrenaline had worn off, leaving behind this surreal, almost dreamlike quiet. The kayaker was sitting on the muddy bank, chest heaving, shivering from shock and cold water, but alive, and that was all that mattered. Marley trotted over to Dave, tail wagging, tongue lolling, fur matted with water and mud, and it was impossible not to smile watching her. She looked proud, not boastful, just satisfied in that calm, quiet way that only dogs seem to have when they know they did something truly important. The kayaker leaned back against the sandbank, exhausted, and whispered to Marley, still catching his breath, "I don't know how to thank you. You saved my life." And Marley, in true Chesapeake Bay Retriever fashion, nudged his hand with her nose, eyes bright, as if to say, "I didn't do it for thanks. I did it because I had to." It was a simple, pure moment that hit everyone on the riverbank right in the chest. You could see the relief in the other kayakers, the awe in the volunteers, and even a few bystanders who had filmed the rescue on their phones now looking silently, heads shaking, as if to say, "I just witnessed something incredible." Dave wrapped a towel around Marley's wet fur and laughed, exhausted, patting her on the head. "You're something else, girl, something else." And Marley leaned into his hands, calm now, tail flicking, aware that the danger had passed, but still alert, still watching the water, still ready for the next challenge. Watching her, I realized that this dog wasn't just a pet or even a rescue animal. She was a hero in the truest sense, and one that didn't need medals, applause, or recognition. She did what needed to be done, period. The kayaker finally stood up, knees wobbling, and thanked Dave, shaking his head. "I can't believe it. 1 second, I'm about to get swept away, and the next, that dog appears and just takes charge. I've never seen anything like it." And Dave just shrugged, still petting Marley, saying quietly, "You just have to trust them sometimes. They know what to do." And that, honestly, felt like the most American kind of hero story. The quiet, unassuming courage, the instinct, the partnership, the willingness to step up without thinking about fame or recognition. I looked around at the river, the rapids still churning, rocks jutting out, water rushing with relentless force, and I couldn't help but feel humbled. The river was huge, powerful, indifferent to anyone trying to navigate it. But Marley? She had faced it head on. She had seen the danger and moved in anyway. And the kayaker had trusted her, and together, they survived. It was a lesson in courage, resilience, and trust, things that too often we assume belong only to humans. Other kayakers and spectators started approaching, shaking their heads, commenting on how incredible it had been. Someone joked about Marley getting her own action movie, and a few laughed, but the laughter was quiet, reflective, like the kind that comes after witnessing real bravery. It wasn't funny, it was awe and admiration and relief all rolled into one. And Marley, of course, basked in the attention just enough to wag her tail, but mostly she seemed to already be thinking about the next move, the next challenge. She was never one to rest long when there was work to do. That afternoon, as we packed up, the kayaker sat down beside Marley and Dave. He kept glancing at her, shaking his head, still in disbelief. "I don't think I'll ever see a dog do that again," he admitted. And Marley nudged his hand, and for a brief second, it felt like a full conversation happened without words. It was trust, understanding, instinct, and heroism compressed into a glance, a nudge, a paw. And it reminded me that stories like this, the ones that inspire, that make you reflect, aren't just about danger or spectacle. They're about connection, courage, and the quiet acts of bravery that change lives, often unnoticed by the rest of the world. Dave told us later that Marley had been trained for water rescues. Yes, but that training alone didn't account for her instincts, her decision-making, or her courage. That comes from character, from loyalty, from a dog who understands the weight of life in a way humans sometimes forget. And watching her that day, I understood exactly what he meant. Training prepares you, but heart, the kind Marley had, is what makes a hero. As the sun began to lower in the sky, casting long shadows over the river, there was this stillness. The rapids had quieted, the kayaker was safe, and Marley laid down in the sand, eyes bright but calm. You could see Dave looking down at her with pride and relief, and it hit me. The bond between human and dog here was more than companionship. It was partnership, trust, and mutual understanding under extreme circumstances. That kind of bond, it changes the way you see the world. It changes the way you value courage and loyalty. I thought about how many times we underestimate dogs, how many times we forget that they can act decisively in life or death situations. And Marley had reminded all of us, in the most unforgettable way, that heroism doesn't have to wear a cape. It doesn't have to be televised. It doesn't need applause. Sometimes it comes with fur, paws, and eyes that refuse to look away when someone is in danger. The kayaker, finally standing, looked at Marley and asked, "What would I have done without you?" Dave smiled, patting her head, and Marley wagged her tail like the answer was obvious. She didn't need recognition. She had done her job, and that was enough. And for everyone watching, including me, I realized that the lesson wasn't just about water rescues. It was about trust, courage, loyalty, and the ways in which heroes can appear when we least expect them. And so I leave this story for anyone watching. Heroism can show up anywhere. In a raging river, in a chaotic parking lot, or even in quiet, everyday moments. It doesn't matter if it's human or dog. Courage exists wherever there's a life worth saving. And sometimes, the bravest acts come from the most unexpected sources. Marley reminded all of us that day that action matters, that instinct matters, and that trust, between human and animal, between friends, between strangers, is more powerful than most people ever give it credit for. So here's my question for you. If you were on that riverbank, watching the rapids, watching a friend or stranger in danger, would you act? Could you trust someone else, even a dog, to guide you, to protect you? And if you were Marley, would you have had the courage to dive into those rapids, every wave, every rock, every hazard threatening your life, just to save someone else? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments, your own stories of loyalty, courage, or that unforgettable moment where someone, or some dog, made all the difference. Because moments like this aren't just inspiring, they're reminders of what real bravery looks like. And as for Marley, well, she'll probably be out on another river tomorrow, chasing waves, barking at logs, rescuing whoever needs her. But for us, and for the kayaker that day, she'll always be a hero. And that's the kind of story worth sharing.